Okay.
And now we are ready.
Now we're ready. Okay. So, name, right? Okay. My name is Lieutenant Colonel Seth Folsom. I'm the battalion commander for 3rd Battalion, 7th Marines.
All right, so what was 3-7's mission or goals coming here?
3-7's mission in Sangin was to conduct full-spectrum counterinsurgency operations in order to set the conditions for Afghan National Security Force development and to facilitate the successful transition of the local government to Afghan control.
How did you prepare the Marines to come out here?
Yeah. When well, let me back up. I'll back up a little bit to what the mission piece. More simply put, our mission when we came to Sangin was really to deepen the hold that had been achieved by 1st Battalion, 5th Marines in their deployment before us. 3-7 had been deployed to Sangin in 2010, and that deployment had been highly kinetic. 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines deployment after that had also been highly kinetic. 3-5 had taken substantial casualties, as had 1-5 in their deployment. And so when we found out that we were coming back to Sangin in April of 2011, when we learned that, we didn't really know what to expect. We knew that there'd been heavy fighting throughout the fall and winter of 2010 and 2011, but we also knew that the environment was going to have changed. We knew the situation would change. We knew that the enemy would change. We knew that the people would change. So the way we approached the mission was to focus at the squad level. I'm a firm believer that a good infantry battalion is nothing more than 27 good rifle squads. And so the focus for our operations was conventional operations with the emphasis at the squad level. I'm also a firm believer that counterinsurgency is a mindset. It's not a skill set. And I also believe that conventional operations are the foundation for excellence in counterinsurgency operations. And so our emphasis on basic conventional operations, a brilliance in the basics concept, a brilliance in the basics mindset, that was what was going to set the conditions for us. I knew that if we could nail it at the squad level, then we were going to be successful when we returned over here. How we prepared for that, or how we executed the mission, rather. Initially, we did what we call a hand-in-glove relief in place with 1-5. We assumed all the battle positions that they had been occupying for 7 months. We approached the problem in the same manner that we did because they had so much success, and we felt that success begets success. However, as the situation began to develop, and as the mission began to evolve, we began to pull back in certain aspects. We knew that our mission was to develop the Afghan National Security Forces, the ANSF. We also knew that our mission was to provide security, and we had to develop the local government. But what we realized over time was the way that we were going to accomplish that mission was actually to begin to pull back from our Afghan counterparts. We knew that we would never reach our end state if we were constantly holding their hands, constantly bailing them out, and constantly showing them how to do everything. So we realized over time that the less that we were forcing them to operate, the less that we were realized over time, the less that we were forcing them to operate, the less we were forcing our decisions on them and influencing them to come up with their own solution to problems, that the better they were going to be. And the way this evolved for us was not long into our deployment. We sat down with an operational planning team with our Afghan military counterparts, and we decided we have to develop a security plan on how we're going to cut up the battle space here in Sangin, how we're going to assign responsibilities among the different branches of the ANSF, where we're going to locate the Afghan National Army units, where we're going to locate the Afghan Uniform Police units, where we're going to locate the Afghan National Civil Order Police units. How are they going to be arrayed in the battle space? Who is going to be responsible for what, and how are the Marines going to fit into that transition? We helped them develop the plan, and in the end, it was their plan. And then over time, as I said, we began to pull back from them, and it wasn't long before the Afghans were saying to us, we want to plan our own operations. We don't want to do this operation that you're trying to make us do. We want to develop our own operations and conduct our own operations. And we had the same experience with the Afghan government here, with Jaroa as well. At first, we worked very closely with them. We attended all of their local government shuras. We sat in on the interim district community council shura that went every week. And what we realized over time was the way to push them into the lead was for us to take a step back. And the more and more that we took a step back, the more they accepted their responsibility as the leaders of the government here in Sangin. And the more they started making decisions for themselves and for the people of Sangin writ large. In effect, what we did over the course of 7 months was work ourselves out of a job.
Alright, so you answered 1 and 2. Can you talk about what 37 has done throughout the deployment center?
What this battalion has accomplished over the course of 7 months here in Sangin is as varied as the mission itself. At any given time, on any given day here in Sangin, Marines might be conducting patrols, either by foot or by vehicle. They might be conducting a key leader engagement or a shura with local elders. They might be coordinating an IED or reducing an IED or coordinating a casualty evacuation. They might be supervising a local development project. They might be targeting and hunting down enemy personnel. And just as important, at any given time throughout the course of this deployment, we had our Marines and sailors behind the scenes at all of our patrol bases and our forward operating bases who were pushing our fuel, repairing our vehicles and our equipment, running our data systems, running our administration, running our battalion aid stations, running all the supporting assets and all the supporting functions that keep those riflemen out there, keeping them fed, keeping them watered, keeping them supplied, and at any given time, any of those things were happening within the battalion. The battalion was operating 24/7. We were never closed. The battalion was always open for business.
Sir, do you know like last year's mission compared to this one?
Yeah.
The difference?
37's mission in 2010 was at the complete opposite end of the spectrum as our mission was when we arrived here in 2011. When 37 arrived in Sangin last year, their mission was literally to kick in the door. They came in to relieve the British 40th Commandos, who had been reduced to essentially operating purely out of their FOBs and their patrol bases in a siege mindset. And 37's mission was to come in, clear the green zone, and set the conditions for follow-on Marine units to come in after them. 37's foray into Sangin was highly kinetic. They were facing an enemy who had been emboldened by years of keeping the British on their heels. The Taliban in 2010 were not prepared for the ferocity that the Marines from 37 brought to the fight when they showed up here. But as the mission and as the area of operations evolved over the course of the next year, then the operating environment evolved, the demands that it placed on the Marines evolved, and when the Marines showed up here in 2011, they no longer faced an enemy who was willing to stand up and fight them. Instead, the Marines had to resort to endless patrols and disruption operations that were designed to hunt the enemy down, catch him where he lives, and take him out that way. The Marines faced incredible operational and environmental challenges while they were here, and they were faced with they were placed in a position where they were essentially patrolling in one giant minefield here in Sangin. And the deployment in Sangin last year was very short-lived. It was only a matter of a couple of months. So for the Marines in 2010, that operation was essentially a sprint. But by the time the Marines arrived in 2011 for a full 7-month deployment in Sangin, the operation had to become a marathon for them. We knew that it could not be a full-on sprint for 7 months. We had to pace ourselves. We had to exercise our tactical patience. We had to exercise in many degrees. We had to exercise much more restraint than we were probably used to, and we had to use more cunning, and we had to definitely exercise our endurance and our physical and mental toughness.
How do you feel the battalion kind of answer that?
Over the course of this deployment, the Marines and the sailors have absolutely surpassed anything beyond my wildest expectations. Their discipline, their professionalism, their esprit de corps, their endurance, their personal resolve to accomplish the mission, they were all critical components to our overall success here. And you know, as I said before, when I first came to this battalion, I told the Marines that I wanted them to be physically and mentally tough. And they met every challenge out here. Every operational challenge, every environmental challenge that we faced, they delivered in total. And you know, through their actions, the Marines and the sailors of this battalion truly became the model for the regiment and for the division and all others in this area of operations to emulate.
Having 2 Sangin deployments, how do you think it has affected 3-7's history?
I think in many respects, Sangin has become the quintessential Marine campaign in Afghanistan. I believe that Sangin is going to take its place in the history books alongside places like Fallujah and Chosin and Guadalcanal. I think 3-7 is going to be remembered as the battalion that opened up Sangin for business, and then later the battalion that pushed the Afghan National Security Forces and the Afghan government into the lead to take control of their destiny here in the district. The Marines and the sailors, they accomplished all of these seemingly impossible tasks, they were against many odds, and they did this through the focused application of discipline, professionalism, determination, focused firepower, and just as important, through the application of an incredible amount of restraint. They persevered here, even when there were a lot of people at home and abroad who questioned the wisdom of our mission here.
And just your final thoughts?
Throughout the course of this deployment, I think the Marines and the sailors, they've demonstrated time and time again that they truly are the best that this country has to offer. They've embraced the concept of becoming part of something that's bigger than themselves, and they literally have sacrificed everything in an effort to provide a chance at survival and prosperity for the people of Sangin. They worked hard, they suffered together, they endured, and at the same time, they did all this and they were able to keep their honor clean. They stood up for what was right, even though I know at times it felt like they were standing alone. And I can tell you that it's been an absolute honor and a privilege to have been their commander and to work alongside each and every one of them.
Yes, sir. And just if there's anything you'd like to add, anything you feel we didn't cover that you think we should cover?
Let's see here.